every time you come back from camp, you're more like yourself.
Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, where each week we talk about ideas for raising kids who become thriving adults. I'm your host, Audrey Monkey. I'm a summer camp director, writer, and speaker, and I've had the privilege of working with thousands of children, teenagers, young adult counselors, and parents over the past 3 decades. My husband, Steve, and I are raising 5 kids who currently range in age from 15 to 25. So my interest in raising kind, optimistic, self-reliant kids who become thriving adults is personal as well as professional. Hi, Sunshine Parenting listeners. I have some really exciting news to share. My book, Happy Campers, 9 Summer Camp Secrets for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults, comes out on May 7th and is available for pre-order now. One of my favorite endorsements from early readers of the book came from one of my parenting education heroes, Dr. Michael Thompson. He says, Happy Campers is a joyful and wise parenting book. Drawing on her lifetime of experience as a camper, camp counselor, and camp director, Audrey Monkey shows us what is most important in the lives of children. She then takes the next step and teaches parents how they can recreate the magic of camp in their own homes. I have never read a more optimistic and well-grounded guide to parenting. For pre-order information about my book, visit happycampersbook.com. You'll find links to all your favorite book retailers there where you can pre-order your copy. Once you've pre-ordered, complete the pre-order form, and I'd be excited to send you some fun freebies, including the first chapter of the book in PDF form. It's called Camp Secret Number 1, Connection Comes First. I'll also send you an invitation to join my private Facebook group where I'll be discussing Happy Campers and sharing all kinds of resources, videos, and chats. Thank you so much for pre-ordering your copy of Happy Campers. In this episode of the podcast, I'm chatting with Travis Allison. Travis is a legend in the camp industry. He's a motivational speaker, passionate and charismatic in his delivery of important messages for camp counselors and camp professionals. I hope you enjoy our conversation about the power of camp and the power of one. Welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, Travis.
Thank you, Audrey. I'm so excited to be here finally.
I know we finally made this work out. Travis, talk a little bit about, just tell everybody about your background and what you do.
Excellent. I am a consultant who works with summer camps. Most of my work really focuses on helping camps better tell their story so that they can get more kids to experience this thing that, as I've experienced, can be life-changing and can be a home for kids that may not feel like they fit in lots of places. And so my great passion around camp is to get more kids there because I really believe that every kid should go to summer camp.
And that kind of circles us back to, I think I told you before we started recording that I'm calling this episode The Power of Camp and the Power of One, because you have an excellent TED Talk called The Power of One that shares your story about discovering camp and the power of camp for yourself. Can you just share a little bit about your story?
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to and excited to. It's a story that I love. And for me, it is also, as much as it is a great camp story, and I think it is, I hope it's an inspiration to people to say small actions have big consequences, and spending time and noticing, appreciate kids can have reverberating consequences. Because when I was 13 years old, I was certainly struggling with finding a place to fit in at home. I had 6 days of camp in a year that I could go, and I found this one little place where I really fit in. I felt respected. I felt like I was listened to. And so I always looked forward to camp. It was the big anchor point from my year, especially at things like when I was going into 8th grade and really not knowing that I didn't really fit in the small community that I grew up. So had this really great experience where one afternoon after lunch, my counselor asked me to step outside and talk to him during rest hour. And I was kind of panicky about what that meant. But he just took me outside, set me down on the top of the picnic table, and just simply said to me, Travis, I want you to know that you're going to be a great camp counselor. And for me, it was the first time that I felt like someone who wasn't my parents, wasn't a teacher, really had noticed and appreciated me. And it was super cool because I hadn't been, camp was a place where I did relax. I didn't feel like I was putting anything on to fit in there. And this person that I loved and respected said this simple thing to me that really there's no reason at all to expect I would do anything that would lead me to this podcast today had he not said so all those years ago.
That is such an inspirational story. And I think sometimes we forget just that we can just change a life by giving some kind of encouragement or, that kind of blessing, or just saying to someone, showing them that we see their strength. And I think it's actually even more powerful when it's not from a parent. What do you think?
I know. Yes. Parents and teachers, you kind of feel like, I think as a kid, you kind of feel like both of them are being paid in their own way to say those nice things to you. And as a kid, it was just someone that I looked up to and someone I respected who saw something in me that I hadn't yet seen in myself. I knew camp was a place where I felt comfortable, but I guess I must have had doing something inside our cabin group that made a counselor want to say to me, take a moment and just say this. And I just really a small touch. I know for a fact that he doesn't remember doing this, saying this to me. It's just, he was the kind of camp person who would take time and do that. And it impacted me forever. And I always, when I was directing camp with my wife, Beth, it'd be one of the things that we did at the beginning of every year, and often just remind people throughout the camp season that this small impact, finding 60 seconds, 30 seconds, and individually talking to each kid can have such a massive impact that you can't even comprehend what the impact could be.
Oh, that is so true. Well, as you're talking, I was thinking about how, my own kids, of course, I love to tell them all the wonderful things I see in them, but they will often say, "Oh, Mom, of course you think that," like I'm biased, but I also am biased. And that's the thing. As a parent, you really are, you kind of see your child just differently than maybe other people do. So it's really, really powerful. Like, I love seeing when my kids go out into the world and then from other people, they get that encouragement. It is so much more powerful than what they've heard from me their whole life. And so it's amazing. And I love your story. And wow, it changed kind of the whole trajectory of your life, didn't it?
Well, I think it gave me a bit of a trajectory for the first time ever. So many of the people that I grew up with, and I had good friends and I had great family connection, and I was really lucky, despite the fact that I was bullied on the bus and bullied at school for being different. I did have a support system at home, but this was a first time that someone who was in this place that really felt like my home, where I could really be myself, noticed and said something. And just the act, like that simple act of, "Hey, can I talk to you?" to say to me at 13, "I see this in you, and I just wanted you to know that in you." And that's, man, I'm so grateful. What an amazing experience to have from somebody who was so kind and influential to me in my life.
Sure. Oh my gosh. Well, I'd love for you to take a moment just to talk to parents who maybe have a child who is a little bit like young Travis. Like, kind of describe, what that experience was like, feeling like maybe, you didn't go with the same flow as maybe whatever was considered cool or whatever you want to do. Talk about, for parents, what summer camp can mean for their child who isn't socially feeling super accepted and happy in their regular life.
Yeah. And I've come to realize in all of the work that we're doing with camps, in all of the trainings that we do, that everybody gets bullied to some extent in their lives. And so everybody has this feeling that they have there comes a certain age for kids, they just become really sensitive to what the social setting is that they are in. I was a kid who was educationally labeled early as a gifted kid, and that put some strains on my very small social community at camp. I was a kid who would read. My family always teases me that I'd go to school, walk to the bus, reading one book, and walk home reading the next book. I'd have to take 2 books to school with me, or I'd run out of stuff to read. And I appreciate that, first of all, my parents did the work to make sure that I landed at camp comfortable and excited. Of course, I was intimidated. I was nervous, all of those things. But my parents had really done the work to make me feel comfortable there. And I think that that should be an indicator to parents who are looking for something for their kids where they can find a support system that is genuine, caring, and so intentional about this kind of stuff, looking after each kid individually, that should be the kind of things that you should be talking to the programs that you're considering for your kids. And I do think that there is a camp out there for every kid. Our camp would be fairly traditional in its own way, even though it was a short program, with sort of swimming, arts and crafts, all of those kind of programs. It wasn't a specialty program in any way, but it really just did give me this place where people accepted that I was this bright, nerdy kid who they didn't really put any of that pressure on me. And I guess that's part of the cool part of this story is that what my counselor saw in me was not what I thought everybody saw in me. That's the other part of it. It's nice to be noticed and appreciated in me that others hadn't.
Well, and it also could be, that maybe you were kind of known, at home and in your family as the kind of bright, nerdy reading kid. And so to be told, wow, I like to read and I have this thing and I could be a great camp counselor too.
Yeah, it's pretty special. And really that is at the heart of why I think every kid should do this, why every parent should, even though it's challenging, it's hard to find the right place. It's nerve-wracking to send away your kids to be looked after by young adults. It is so worth it to put the time and energy into it because the impact can be lifelong. You can just give your kid a chance to try out different personalities. One of my favorite moments of my life was going back to school, lifelong friends, a woman who I had been engaged to be married to when we were 4. She said to me, coming back to school this time when I was 19, she said, Travis, every time you come back from camp, you're more like yourself. And just that whole period of high school, I could try out different identities. I could, be inspired by lots of things until it all just sort of meshed together. And I had the freedom to do that at camp, was open to me having a different haircut every year or, having a different passion or even sometimes dressing differently from year to year as I was figuring all that stuff out as a young adult.
I wrote that down. Every time you come back from camp, you're more like yourself. That's a quotable, tweetable moment right there.
Yep. Yes, thank you, Amy Bowering.
When I want to hear what your parents did, you mentioned that they really prepped you well. Was that more in that they found the program that was good for you, or was it something that they told you or did for you that helped you feel comfortable going the first time?
It was definitely something that they had said to me. So I went to the camp that my mom and her brothers went to and my grandparents went to. Oh. So we all had this, sort of kintail experience in our background. And, of my sister and my 4 cousins from that family, my sister went once, one of my other cousins went once, but the others didn't get the same experience. I guess they weren't pushed into it the same way I was, but pushed lovingly. I wasn't.
Yeah.
Good way. It wasn't that I wasn't ready. Yeah, I was ready to go to camp for sure. And my parents are always great at that in seeing when I needed a little push from behind. But preparing me for camp, I always try to tell camp directors, camp leaders that no kid should show up at your site without knowing 2 things. One is the name and the face of at least 1% of camp. So whether that is the director who's sent out a personal video to that person, whether you have the staff around and the capabilities to do that, you can have the counselor give a personal phone call welcome when they're going to be in their unit, just so that you feel like, for us, when we were camp directing, we didn't always know what counselor you would have, partly because it just switched every week. We had kids come in on Sunday and leave on Saturday. And so we were switching around our counseling pairs all the time and just tuning the things. So we couldn't say a month out, you are going to have Travis and Audrey as your counselors. So what we did is introduce them to the head counselor. And we had the head counselor send out a letter. If it was 2019, I would have a video made with our head counselor to introduce and say, if you run into trouble, you're worried about anything, you can always go to Chantel, who was the head counselor. So I remember back to when I was a kid, after probably 2 or 3 years at camp, I knew that I could always count on seeing the director. So I knew that Bob Ferris would be there, someone I looked up to. Awesome for me, even before this moment with Ian McLean, my counselor, awesome for me to go back the 3rd year and have the director call me by name. What a great feeling for a 9 or a 10-year-old. So know somebody, know their face. The other thing is to know a ritual or something that happens on the first day. so that there is some point in this big overwhelming day, there's something that a kid can go, oh, I can get this. Like, I'm ready for this. This is it. So for me, it was that my mom taught me and made me practice singing Johnny Appleseed before meals. So I had one little thing. So when they sang Johnny Appleseed on the first night, I still remember that first night, them starting Johnny Appleseed and me thinking, oh yeah, I got this. This is one thing I can do. It's not new. And so if you're a parent and you're preparing your kids, work with the camp. If you're a camp leader, then you should be doing this anyway. Like, there should be things that happen on the first day that new kid can say, oh, I got this. I know this part.
That is such great advice for both ends, for both camp people who are, or any place like a school or anywhere where kids are coming new. This is really, really good advice. Both of those things, I think, work in every setting. And this is why you're so good at what you do, consulting with camps and parents on this, because, it's funny. We started a couple of years ago doing we started doing it a long time ago. We do a kind of an online meeting, first year families with the kids and the parents. And then we also do live ones, but because we're a residential camp, not everyone can come live, but it's exactly what you said. We show them the words to the camp song. We show them how it sounds. We actually show them pictures of what it looks like when they arrive and they walk down our road, and how the counselors stand and where they're going to find their counselor. And then we also go through, here's some of the different people at camp who you can talk to if you need anything. And so it's so funny, as you were talking, I was like, it's so important. And I think for parents too, just to know, the parents also need a touch point, a person who they can talk to and, talk to them about, like, when you were a kid, I'm sure your mom and dad could call and say, oh yeah, Travis, he's a little nervous about camp. This is what he's like. It would be great if the counselor knew this about him. And all those things that parents do to kind of partner with the camp director is so important. So I love that advice. That is so, so good, Travis. Let's just quickly, I think, we could talk about camp the whole time, but we only have a couple more minutes. So I want you to talk a little bit more about your key points in your TED Talk. You tell the story of hearing this thing. What are some of your other messages for adults who work with kids?
My biggest point is to just find a minute to say hello, to call a kid by name. It's important that they feel noticed. It's such a big, all of these are part of building a child's social resiliency. And, them being in a new situation and being called out by name is empowering to them. It makes them feel noticed. And so my biggest thing I want people to take away from this is that the impact can be huge. The effort doesn't have to be huge. And you may not even know what the impact is, but that it is worth spending the time to just talk to kids one-on-one, be quiet. As camp leaders, and this was certainly me, even as in my heart from what happened to me, but when you're responsible for a group of 8, 11-year-olds, and you're personally, you're 19 years old and you want to take this seriously, you're like me, you've been told then for almost 10 years that you'll be a great camp counselor. So that's kind of freaking you out. That you have this intention, but you have this group of kids. You're like, I have these 8 people that I have to keep together, and we have to arrive on time at places. And, our group, I wanted to show off that my group is well behaved and polite and all those things that were things that I was thinking about at 19. In the midst of all that, somebody needs to say to that counselor, young counselor me, just stop and sit down beside each kid for 30 seconds each day and check in with them. That's all it takes. Is, how's it going today? What have you learned? What have you enjoyed? Are you making friends? What sort of stuff are you in our unit? All that stuff is simple. The impact can be huge.
It's funny. I write about that in my book. I just call it a one-on-one, and it's something that we do at camp. And I think parents can learn just so much from that simple camp counselor strategy, which, like you said, is very simple. It can be 30 seconds. It can be a minute or two, depending on what's going on. And it's just staring in that one kid's eyes and being there for them and listening to them and just asking some check-in questions. I love that example that you just gave, because so many kids can go through a whole day and never have an adult who just stops and says, hey, what's going on? How are you today? And can I do anything to help you feel more comfortable here? Or, just those little things. It's just, they're humans who need human interaction. And sometimes we forget, like you said, in the rush of life. And I think parents can be that way too. You can be so concerned about rushing out the door and getting to school on time. And, you're frustrated with your kid who's lost in their book, instead of, wow, I love that you love to read so much. We got to move here, just what are you reading? Just a little bit more interaction around that. That is really powerful. Travis, you and Beth do a lot of different things. Talk about just all these different businesses and consulting and things that you have going on and where people can find you and find the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that opportunity. If you are a camp person, then I would say go check out gocamp.pro. That's really our home for camp people on the web. If you're a parent who's listening, who's interested in hearing more of my story about the power of one or the talk about the power of one, then just go to walkingmaverick.com and you can contact me through that. All of the stuff we're doing, really my big goal in my job is to cultivate camps where they can have this little same small interaction that I had. And so we do a lot of things to support that. We have the podcast. So we do our own podcast just for people who work at summer camp called Camp Hacker, called Camp Code, which is just about staff training. And also the Day Camp podcast is a new one for us this year that has been getting lots of attention. It's for people who run day camps. And we're also running a little series to help camp directors get their staff ready this summer. It's in the Camp Hacker feed. It's called First Class Counselors. And it is something that a camp director can pass on to their counselors. It's just advice from direct people supervising counselors, like advice on how to do your job well as a counselor. And we're excited about that. There'll be more of those are coming out in the next couple of months. On top of that, including the work that we're doing, consulting one-on-ones with camps on marketing and building good filters. You can find it all at gocamp.pro.
As you were talking and you were talking about how, these podcasts and some of your work is, for camp counselors or camp professionals, I really think that a lot of the work you're doing is also great for educators. Do you end up working with teachers and educators at all?
I certainly have. Most of our work has been focused just in trying to, because as you alluded to, we have lots of projects and lots of experiments that we're running to see how much we can maximize the impact we can have for kids. So I have a history of working with schools, working with teachers in, how to use technology in a classroom, how to focus in teachers and administrators and story of the transformation that you offer in your program. So definitely have a history of it. I'm not doing it as much anymore, not because I don't want to necessarily, just because we've chosen to really focus on camp.
Yeah, I just think that teachers and other people could benefit from listening to your podcast, even though you have Camp Hacker is the company. What's the name of the podcast that's for camp people? Camp Code.
That is Camp Hacker.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the one I've listened to.
Right, the Camp Hacker podcast, and then Camp Code is one just about summer camp staff training.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so you have so many things. I'm going to put links to everything in the show notes so people can find you. At the very top will be your TED Talk. I'll embed that so people can watch it and learn from you and be inspired that just a few words can change a life. And it's so inspirational. I loved your TED Talk so much. I'm glad I found it. It was only I don't know when you did it, but I only found it a month ago. And I really, really enjoyed it and shared it already, but I will put it in the show notes so everyone can watch it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being on, Travis, and for all the great work that you're doing, both to train and help people in the camp profession, and also just to inspire adults in general in our work with kids. I really appreciate the impact that you're having on our industry and just in the world at large.
It's my honor. I certainly feel a responsibility to pass on this great gift that was given to me. And so that's why we do what we do, is to give more kids this opportunity that I had. My wife, Beth, has had lots of these opportunities too, and all the people that work around us. So it's an honor to do it.
Okay, well, I'll have to have Beth on next.
Indeed.
Okay, thanks for being on today, Travis.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the podcast. I really enjoyed chatting with Travis, and he has so many great insights about the power of summer camp and the power of one adult in the life of a child. For the show notes from this episode and links to Travis's TED Talk and everything else we talked about, visit my website at sunshine-parenting.com and search for episode 80. I'll end this episode with the words that Travis uses to start his TED Talk, The Power of One. On a warm summer afternoon in 1984, my camp counselor said to me 8 words that would change my life. He said, "Travis, you will be a great camp counselor."
This podcast is a proud member of Parents on Demand, a network of high-quality shows for families just like yours. Download our free network app on Apple and Android and listen to your favorite episodes on the go.